Hello, welcome to the show. My name is Karynn Weinstein, and with me I have my partner, Dave Weinstein. Welcome, Dave.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Karynn.
I'm glad you're here as well. I'm going to talk about the riots just for a moment now, and then we'll get into about the misinterpretation of important information. So, first, I'd like to talk about the statues being destroyed by rioters. I think the people are at the point of actually rioting now, and they should be arrested for destroying statues or defacing statues and graffiti. No more defacing the statues. That is completely and totally wrong. What happened to the peaceful demonstration, people? These people who ruin our statues must be stopped, whether white or black, for any meaning. This is why there is laws to keep such people, white and black, from ruining our country. You're ruining our heritage. I'm sorry that it happened, but people, that's what took place 150 years ago. Or 100 and maybe a little bit longer than 150 years ago. We cannot have a lawless country. Yes, there's a widespread of violence occurring in our country. And I want to talk about the police right now. The police brutality must come to an end. I agree with that. But I don't think it's so much black people. It happens to white people as well. Just the thing is, the white people won't stand up against it. They're very much afraid of brutality by the police. So they tolerate it. But the black people have the courage to stand up and say, Black Lives Matter. With the police brutality, that must come to an end. We don't want to have that happening anymore. I don't believe the police officers should be judge, jury, and executioner. That is not the way for democracy, and that is not the way to treat your countrymen. The black people must learn of our ways that determine how we are to live. I don't like any type of supremacy, whether it's white people or black people. The black people, I found, are much more racist than the white people are. So that is one of the problems in today's world. Let's not make racism. Let's make it individual behavior that must be looked upon, and what should not be looked upon as being black, or singling yourselves out that this happens to black people. It happens also to white people. Remember that. It happens to white people, not just the black people. And the white people united with the black people to defend ourselves against police brutality. I recommend, don't see a person's color, but I say, see their behavior. Whether it's white or black or brown, see the person's soul and not their color. That's what I believe. And I want the police officers to stop thinking you're better than the rest. What happened to the time when a police officer enters an area, black people, black family, goes in and they say there's an argument, a discrepancy amongst the family members. The police came in to help them rectify their concerns. The officer put handcuffs on the 15-year-old son just to keep everything safe. And the boy, the 15-year-old, had no problem. The police stood there, they solved the issue, took away any animosity between the family members. They then took off the handcuffs off the boy, and they left. What happened to those days of us policing our people? Remember, I say this again, The people, the police officers, do not have the right to judge and be the jury and the executioner of anyone, no matter the color. Everyone's lives matter. Right now, I want to continue to a different topic. And the topic is called Misinterpretation of Important Information. The misinterpretation of important information. Not receiving the statement correctly. Or maybe it's because you didn't get enough information. But here I have with my husband to help me recognize and take away and bring clarity to this statement. I would like to read it first. When we see the news and other aspects of interacting with the people, we can unintentionally mistake the description to what is really being said. This happens with the news and other thoughts that are shared with all others. I have an example of a misrepresentation or misinterpretation of the facts that are presented. I was watching a news media, a highly respectable news organization. On the bottom of the screen, there's one line that also gives information and news for the people to read while the regular programming is taking place. The statement that was noted that I had read was this: the U.S. Treasury sent $1.4 billion of pandemic aid to dead people. Let me read that again. The U.S. Treasury sent $1.4 billion of pandemic aid to dead people. Now let me explain my interpretation. My first impression was the government doing something illegal. Well, how can the government make such an error? How did this happen? Is our government making such a massive mistake, losing out $1.4 billion to the aid for the dead people? However, that was not a statement that gave you the full amount of information that you need to understand what the news media was trying to convey. So I thought the government made a massive mistake. And I'd like to ask David right now, he is an accountant. He has his own business. And I need him to clarify my thoughts, to give me clarity to the statement the U.S. Treasury sent $1.4 billion of pandemic aid to dead people. Let's hear from David exactly what the news media meant by this statement. So Dave, am I right? Do you recognize my first impression that the government was doing something wrong? Can you explain to me and my viewers what exactly happened and what are they talking about? What is the Treasury Department talking about $1.4 billion aid to be given to the dead people? Can you explain this to me, please?
Yes. First of all, although the dollar amount sounds like a huge amount, and it went to approximately 1 million people, their checks were sent out to 60 million people. So when you figure that, it's not that big of a deal, or it's not a huge amount. And the way it happened...
Now what is this that you're talking? Where is this money coming from? What is the background of how they could talk about $1.4 billion? Where does that money come from?
It's from the government. It's part of the stimulus that was set up when the pandemic hit to help people survive. And the government wanted to get the money into the hands of the people as soon as possible because people were not working. They needed the money.
So this was not actually given to dead people?
No, it wasn't. It was given out. The government wanted to get the money to the hands of people as soon as possible. And they were using tax return information. And they did not have the time to set up a program to check with the tax returns and dealing with Social Security, who would know who passed away. They could have checked everything, but it would have added probably weeks until you would have gotten your money. And the government said, you know what, we're going to make mistakes. Let's get the money into the people's hands as soon as possible. And this money, it is going to be returned.
Now, now it says here, dead people. They don't send the money to dead people deliberately. They were getting this money out to the people as soon as possible to prevent a depression.
Yes.
And we did go into a recession, but by this we received $1,200 each, as many people has received. Remember that surplus, that $1,200 we all received? Well, according to Dave, the money was sent to us as quickly as possible. So we overlooked sending the checks to the people who are deceased as a result of the coronavirus. So,
and
go ahead, continue on, Dave.
If a couple got the money, where let's say the husband passed away, the wife would have gotten a direct deposit, for the $2,400, but they also got a letter stating if this money was sent to you improperly, return it, and it should be returned to the government. And if you don't return it, they're supposed to be checked on your tax return the next year. If you don't return the money, it'll affect your refund. And if it was sent to somebody who had passed away to go into their bank account, the bank account would be closed and the money automatically would go right back to the government.
So when you say the person dies and their bank account is stopped because they no longer need it because they're deceased, then does the bank send that check back, or the individual who received it on behalf of the deceased person? They are the ones who need to be responsible, and they need to be the ones to return that check to the government. Now remember, this is a government stimulus, and it has nothing to do with the IRS, correct?
Correct.
And it has nothing to do with Social Security. A few months ago, they gave us, each of us, most of us, $1,200 out there. And what David is saying, that instead of determining who or what person should receive it, they sent it to everyone who, with their tax returns,
yes,
who filled out and completed a 2018 tax return, and even most recently a 2019 tax return. They sent that stimulus out to those people.
right.
Most of those people. Also, people who didn't send in their tax returns still received the stimulus. This stimulus was given to us by the government to aid in maintaining food and water, and to pay your bills, that $1,200 to pay your bills, to get us through this pandemic. Is this correct, Dave?
That's correct. It was, sure they could have checked, with the IRS and the Social Security, done some sort of a check to see who had passed away and wasn't entitled to it, but they just didn't do it. And if they sent a actual, the first thing was a direct deposit. If the direct deposit was on a bank account and the bank account is closed, the bank actually has to send the money back to the IRS. If it was a check sent to somebody who had passed away, there is nobody there to cash the check, so the funds will never be dispersed.
Correct, yes.
So as I said, plus if it's a couple where one of the husband or the wife passed away, I firmly believe most people will do the right thing and send the check back to the government for their deceased spouse. I truly believe that the vast majority of the people in this country are honest. So I firmly believe that of that $1.4 billion that was sent out, most of it, if not all of it, will be returned to the government. It's just the headline makes it sound a lot worse than it actually is.
And the headline was, I would like to repeat, the U.S. Treasury sent $1.4 billion of pandemic aid to dead people. So like he said, they're most likely, majority of the time, most likely, all that money that was given out to the deceased person will be returned back to the government. So not to worry, people, the government did not make any errors. They wanted to get that surplus, right?
Yep,
surplus,
the stimulus.
The stimulus money out to the people. That was most important to our government, to be sure we have money to pay for food and bills and gas and other necessities. Now, is the government going to do another surplus for our countrymen in the United States, for each and every one of us?
I hope so. It's not definite, but I truly believe they will. And it is needed. The first surplus was good. People needed that to survive. Now that the economy is slowly coming back, putting more money in people's hands will get them to spend it, which will help the economy come back first. The first stimulus, people needed just to pay their bills or to put into an account just in case they needed it, because nobody knew when they'd be back at work. Now that the economy is slowly coming back, I think it'll help the economy come back quicker and stronger. So I truly hope they do have another stimulus.
Do you think we're out of the recession? We're no longer threatened by depression. Are we slowly coming out of, were we in a recession? Are we slowly coming out of the recession?
Yes, we definitely were in a recession, and we are starting to come out of it, but a lot depends on what happens with the coronavirus. If the coronavirus infections continue to go down, the economy will grow. But if we get hit with another huge wave, we could be right back into another recession. A lot depends on how people handle the coronavirus and do the right thing to get it, so we beat it.
Right. We need to follow the rules and regulations of the authority about keeping yourself from contracting coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus. So that definitely clarifies everything that I even thought. I just thought the government made a mistake. But in all actuality, the government was helping us and doing this for us immediately so that we could provide for ourselves and our family members until we go back to work. Now, if they have another stimulus, that would be very beneficial for everyone and pretty much bring us even out of a recession that we're in and make our economy better than it is even to this very day, correct?
That's correct, because this will be people, they got the money and they'll spend it. And now that restaurants are opening up and stores are opening up, they can take that money and spend it to help the economy grow, which is a good thing.
Well, I am so glad that we discussed this. This is very important. This is what I mean by misinterpretation of important information. So keep this in mind. Get clarity, clarify, ask questions. Ask questions. This is hats off to the government to help us through this recession and hopefully completely out of recession. Hats off to the government. Thank you to the government people for helping us get through these most difficult times that this country is going through. Thank you to President Trump. Thank you for the stimulus, and I hope in your heart, President Trump, you send us another stimulus package for us, the American people. Thank you. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you being part of this discussion so that we can really know what is going on with our government. Thank you. Thank you for being with me, Dave.
It was my pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get up and turn it off.
Okay. You want to try it?